What does it mean to carry a light that is not your own? To walk in a world that hungers for your strength, yet binds you to its frailty. In the tales of Middle-earth, there are 5 who came as bearers of such light. 5 who were called Istari, the wise, the wizards. They were not men, though they wore the guise of men. They were not gods, though their spirits sang in the music that shaped the stars. They were Maya, offspring of Eru, Iluvatar's thought, sent by the Valar to guide the free peoples against a shadow that was once their kin. Their names echo in the annals of the Third Age: Gandalf, Saruman, Radagast, Alatar, and Palando. Yet their story is not one of power wielded, but of power restrained. Not of dominion, but of sacrifice. Not of triumph, but of the quiet, trembling hope that dares to endure. This is no mere recounting of deeds. This is a journey into the truths they carried, 10 truths woven into the fabric of their being that speak to the heart of what it means to stand against the darkness, to falter, to rise, or to fade. Let us walk their paths, not as historians, but as pilgrims seeking the meaning beneath the myth. Let us listen, as the elves might, to the song of their lives and find in it the reflection of our own. In the beginning, before the world was shaped, there was Eru, the one who dwelt in the timeless halls. From his thoughts sprang the Ainur, the holy ones, and among them were the Maya spirits of fire and wisdom, lesser than the Valar, yet radiant in their own right. These were the Istari in their first form, singing in the great music that wove the tapestry of Arda. They saw the stars kindled by Varda's hand, and they knew the grief of Iluvatar when Melkor's discord marred the harmony. They were there when the universe was born, and their voices helped shape its beauty. But to be sent to Middle-earth was to leave that radiance behind. The Valar, in their council, chose 5 to go forth, not as conquerors, but as guides. Manwë, king of the Valar, summoned them, and under Iluvatar's silent will they were clothed in flesh. No longer could they wield the might that once shattered mountains. No longer could they recall the full glory of the timeless halls. Their memories became as dreams, distant and veiled, and their powers were bound to the frailties of mortal form. They could hunger, they could tire, they could die. Why would a spirit of fire consent to such diminishment? Why would a Maya who sang with the Ainur choose the weight of flesh? It is because the light they carried was not their own. It was Iluvatar's flame entrusted to them, and in its flickering glow they saw a truth: to serve is to surrender. To guide is to walk beside, not above. The Istari came not to rule Middle-earth, but to kindle hope in its peoples, to stir the embers of courage in hearts that had forgotten their own strength. Their light was borrowed, yet it burned true, for it was lit by the one who made all things. Consider Gandalf, who was Olorin in the west. In Valinor he walked among the gardens of Irmo, learning the ways of dreams and visions, and he sat at the feet of Nienna, the Lady of Sorrow, who taught him pity. Pity, not the pity that condescends, but the pity that weeps with the broken and lifts them to stand. When Manwë chose him, Olorin trembled. "I am too weak," he said, "and I fear Sauron." Yet Manwë saw in his fear a strength greater than might, the strength of humility. Olorin became Gandalf, the Grey Pilgrim, and in his staff and tattered cloak he carried a light that no shadow could quench. But not all bore their light with such grace. Saruman, who was Carumo, was chosen by Aule the smith, who loved crafting and cunning devices. His light was sharp like a blade, and it burned with ambition. Radagast, who was Iwendel, was sent by Yavanna, the giver of fruits, and his light was soft, turned toward the wild things of earth. Alatar and Palando, the blue wizards, were chosen by Orome, the hunter, and their lights vanished into the east, where tales grow dim. Each bore a spark of Iluvatar's flame, but each chose how to wield it or to lose it. What does this truth teach us? That the light we carry is not ours to hoard. It is a gift given to be shared, and in sharing it grows brighter Yet it is also a burden, for to bear light is to know the weight of responsibility, the fear of failing those who depend on its glow. The Istari teach us that even the mightiest must learn to walk humbly to let the light shine through them, not from them. And in this we see our own lives reflected, the moments we are called to carry a hope we do not own, to kindle a flame we fear we cannot sustain. Sauron was no stranger to the Istari. He too was a Maya born of the same thought as they, a spirit who once served Olay before Melkor's whispers turned him to darkness. When the Istari came to Middle-earth, they came to face a shadow that was their kin, a brother twisted by pride and hunger for dominion. This was no mere enemy. This was a mirror, a warning of what they themselves could become. For the Istari were not immune to temptation. Their human forms made them vulnerable to fear, to desire, to the seductive call of power. In the Third Age, when Sauron's shadow rose again, the Valar had learned a bitter lesson. In ages past, their wars against Melkor, now Morgoth, had shattered the world. The war for the sake of the elves left the lands around Melkor's fortress in ruin. The war of wrath drowned Beleri, and beneath the waves, when Númenor fell, Ilúvatar himself broke the world's shape. The Valar could have marched against Sauron with their full might, but the cost would have been the annihilation of Middle-earth's peoples. So they chose a different path, the Istari, emissaries of wisdom, not warriors of wrath. This choice was a confession of humility. The Valar, in their divine power, admitted their limits. They could not save Middle-earth by force without destroying it. Instead, they sent the Istari to inspire, to counsel, to awaken the free peoples to their own strength. But this meant facing Sauron not as equals in power, but as guides bound by mortal weakness. It meant confronting a shadow that knew their nature, that could whisper to their deepest fears. Saruman heard that whisper loudest. In his heart, he envied Sauron's mastery, his ability to bend wills and shape the world. Saruman studied the lore of the rings, seeking the secrets of their making, and in his quest for knowledge he found not wisdom but desire. He journeyed to the east, where tales are silent, and returned with a hunger that grew in secret by the time of the White Council. His voice was laced with deceit, urging caution when Gandalf called for action against Sauron. Saruman did not serve Sauron. He sought to rival him, to claim the One Ring and become a lord in his own right. The shadow was his kin, and he saw in it a reflection of his own ambition. Gandalf, too, knew the shadow's voice. He bore Narya the Ring of Fire, given by Círdan, who saw in him a spirit greater than his humble guise. Narya kindled hope, but it also drew Sauron's gaze. Gandalf felt the weight of that gaze on Weathertop, when he fended off the Nazgûl, and in Moria when he faced the Balrog, another Maya fallen to darkness. Yet Gandalf did not yield to the shadow's call. His pity, learned from Nienna, anchored him. He saw in Sauron not a rival but a tragedy, a warning of what pride could wrought. Radagast turned from the shadow, not in fear but in love. His heart was with the birds and beasts that see, wild things that knew no master. He dwelt in Rhosgobel, far from Sauron's reach, and his silence in the great councils was not cowardice, but a different kind of courage. The courage to protect what is small and overlooked. The blue wizards Alatar and Palando faced the shadow in the east, where Sauron's influence was strongest. Were they heroes stirring rebellion among men, or did they, like Saruman, hear the shadow's whisper and falter? Their tale is lost, but their choice remains a question we all must answer. The shadow is kin to us all. It is the part of ourselves that craves control, that fears loss, that seeks to shape the world to our will. The Istari teach us that to face the shadow is not to destroy it with force, but to resist its call within. It is to choose pity over pride, service over dominion, hope over despair. And in this choice we find the strength to stand even when the shadow wears a familiar face. The word wizard comes from wisdom, not sorcery. The Istari were not conjurers of cheap tricks, nor wielders of blazing spells. Their power was in their knowing, their seeing, their ability to guide others to truths they could not see themselves. But wisdom is no light thing. It is a burden heavy with the weight of foresight, the pain of understanding, the loneliness of seeing what others cannot. Gandalf carried this burden in every step. He wandered Middle-earth from the Shire to Gondor, from Rivendell to Rohan, never resting in one place. He was the grey pilgrim, the wanderer who bore the ring of fire, yet never used it to dominate. His wisdom lay in his questions, his nudges, his quiet encouragements. He sent Bilbo on an adventure that found the One Ring. He urged Frodo to carry it to Rivendell. He counseled Aragorn to watch the roads for hobbits. He saw the potential in the small, the overlooked, the weak, but each choice was a risk. Each nudge a gamble. What if Bilbo had failed? What if Frodo had fallen? Gandalf's wisdom was not certainty but faith, a faith that cost him sleepless nights and weary days. Saruman's wisdom was different. It was sharp, like a tool honed by study and pride. He delved into the lore of rings, seeking mastery over their craft. He spoke with eloquence in the White Council, but his words were a mask hiding his desire for the One Ring. His wisdom became a trap, isolating him in Orthanc, where he gazed into the Palantir and saw only what Sauron wished. Wisdom without humility is a blade that cuts its wielder, and Saruman bled long before his fall. Radagast's wisdom was gentle-rooted in the earth. He knew the language of birds, the secrets of forests, the rhythms of life that others ignored. Yet his wisdom made him silent in the councils of the wise. He did not seek to shape the world, but to preserve its small beauties. Was this wisdom less than Gandalf's? Or was it a different kind of burden, one that chose peace over war even at the cost of influence? The blue wizards carried their wisdom into the east, where no tales return. Did they teach men to resist Sauron's worship? Did they stir rebellion as Tolkien later mused, weakening the armies that marched against the west? Or did their wisdom falter, ensnared by the very power they sought to undo? Their burden was the heaviest, for they walked where no aid came, where the shadow was deepest. Wisdom is not a crown, but a yoke. It asks us to see clearly, to act justly, to bear the consequences of our choices. The Istari teach us that true wisdom is not in knowing all things, but in carrying the weight of what we know and still choosing to act. It is in the quiet moments, Gandalf smoking his pipe as Saruman deceives the White Council, Radagast whispering to a sparrow that wisdom reveals its cost. And in our own lives we know this burden, the times we see truth but cannot speak it, the choices we make that no one else will understand. The One Ring was Sauron's greatest weapon, not because it granted power, but because it promised purpose to Saruman. It offered order, a world shaped by his will, free of chaos. To Gandalf it whispered of victory, of saving Middle-earth by his own hand. To Radagast it might have spoken of protecting the wilds forever. To the blue wizards it could have promised dominion over the east. The ring was temptation itself, and the Istari in their human forms were not immune. Saruman's fall began not with the ring, but with the desire it fed. Long before he gazed into the Palantir, he sought the secrets of ring lore. He journeyed to the east, where he walked paths unknown, and returned with a heart turned inward. In Orthanc he crafted a ring of his own, a pale imitation of Sauron's art. He lied to the Nazgul, denying knowledge of the Shire, yet sent his spies to seek the ring. He imprisoned Gandalf, hoping to break him. Yet in his heart he considered repentance, only to find Gandalf gone, carried away by Gwaihir. The eagle Saruman's tragedy was not that he sought evil, but that he sought good order, knowledge control, and let it twist him into a mirror of the shadow he opposed. Gandalf knew temptation's voice. In Rivendell, when Frodo offered him the ring, he recoiled. "Do not tempt me," he cried. For I do not wish to become like the Dark Lord. Gandalf's refusal was not weakness, but strength. The strength to see the lie within the promise. He bore Narya the ring of fire which kindled hope, but he never used it to dominate. His temptation was to act, to take the burden from others. Yet he chose to guide, to trust, to let Frodo carry the ring to its end. Radagast faced temptation in his own way. His love for the wilds could have led him to hoard power, to protect his forests at the cost of the world. Yet he turned inward, not out of greed, but out of devotion. His silence was his choice, but it left him apart from the great struggle. The blue wizards, too, faced temptation in the east. Tolkien wondered if they fell founding secret cults that outlasted Sauron, or if they remained true, stirring rebellion against him. Their story is a shadow, but it asks the same question: what do we do when power offers to make our dreams real? Temptation wears the face of good. It promises justice, security, love, but it demands our soul. The Istari teach us that to resist is not to deny desire, but to see it clearly, to choose the harder path that leads to light. In our lives, we know this struggle the moment we justify a wrong for a right cause, the choice that feels noble but betrays our heart. The Istari remind us to listen for the whisper and to turn away. The Istari came to Middle-earth knowing they might fail. They were not promised victory nor immortality into their human forms. They could die as Gandalf did in Moria, battling the Balrog for 10 days on the peaks of Zirak-Sigil. They could falter as Saruman did, becoming a beggar in the Shire. They could fade as Radagast and the Blue Wizards did, their tales lost to the west. Their mission was a sacrifice, a giving of themselves without assurance of reward. Gandalf's sacrifice was the most visible in Moria. He stood alone on the bridge of Khazad-dûm, facing a Balrog, a Maya like himself, fallen to fire and shadow. "You shall not pass," he cried, and in that moment he gave everything. His body broke, his spirit fled, and for a time he wandered beyond the circles of the world. Yet Ilúvatar sent him back, not as Gandalf the Grey, but as Gandalf the White, clothed in greater power. His sacrifice was not the end, but a transformation, a testament to the hope he carried. He returned to Ciel Theoden to rally Rohan, to stand against the Witch King at Minas Tirith, to lead the march on the Black Gate. Each act was a giving of himself, a pouring out of his light for others. Saruman's sacrifice was twisted. He gave up his loyalty, his wisdom, his place among the Istari, but not for hope, for power. In Orthanc he hoarded treasures stolen from the dead, perhaps even Isildur's bones, seeking the One Ring. His sacrifice was a betrayal not of Sauron, but of himself. Yet even in his fall there was a moment of hesitation, a fleeting chance for redemption when he climbed Orthanc's summit to beg Gandalf's pardon. That chance passed, and his sacrifice became his doom. Radagast sacrificed influence for love. He chose the birds and beasts over the counsels of the wise, the forest over the battlefield. His was a quiet sacrifice, unnoticed by the great, but it preserved a corner of Middle-earth's beauty. The Blue Wizards sacrificed certainty. They went into the east, where no aid came, where their deeds, whether heroic or tragic, are unknown. Their sacrifice was to walk in shadow, trusting that their light would matter, even if no one sang of it. Sacrifice is the price of hope. It is the willingness to give what we cannot reclaim, to trust that our loss will kindle something greater. The Istari teach us that hope is not a gift, but a cost. In our lives we know this truth. The moments we give up comfort, pride, or safety for something larger than ourselves. The Istari remind us that sacrifice is not loss, but a seed planted in the dark, waiting for the light to break. In the tales of Middle-earth, the Istari are known by their voices. Gandalf's counsel, Saruman's eloquence, Radagast's whispers to the wild, yet their silences are just as potent. Revealing truths their words cannot. Silence is not absence, but presence, a choice, a burden, a confession. Gandalf's silence was wisdom in the White Council when Saruman argued that the One Ring was lost in the sea. Gandalf sat quiet, smoking his pipe. He blew rings of smoke, and when he reached for one, it vanished, a silent rebuke to Saruman's lies. Gandalf knew the ring was not lost. He had seen it in Bilbo's hand. His silence was not weakness, but patience, a trust that truth would reveal itself. In Rivendell, when Elrond offered him leadership of the council, Gandalf refused, choosing the freedom of the wanderer over the weight of command. His silence was his strength, his refusal to grasp power. Saruman's silence was deceit. In Orthanc, he hid his true desires, speaking of alliance while plotting betrayal. He lied to the Nazgul, denying knowledge of the Shire, and when his servant Wormtongue revealed the truth, his silence became a cage. He stood alone in Orthanc, watching Gandalf escape, and his silence was the sound of a heart turning to stone. Even in his final days as a beggar in the Shire, his silence was bitter, a refusal to seek forgiveness. Radagast's silence was love. He spoke little in the councils of the wise, for his heart was with the wilds. His silence was not ignorance, but devotion, a choice to listen to the sparrow's song over the clamor of war, yet his silence left him apart, a solitary figure in a world that needed his voice. Was his silence a failing or a different kind of wisdom? The blue wizard's silence is the deepest, for no tales tell of their deeds. Did they speak rebellion in the east, or did their voices falter under Sauron's sway? Their silence is a mystery, a canvas onto which we paint our hopes and fears. Silence speaks as loud as words. It is the pause before a choice, the space where truth takes root. The Istari teach us that to be silent is to choose what we withhold, what we protect, what we reveal. In our lives we know this silence, the words we do not say, the truths we carry unspoken, the moments we let pass. The Istari remind us that silence is a language, and its meaning is ours to shape. The Istari were sent to guide the mighty kings, lords, and warriors, yet their greatest deeds were wrought through the small. The overlooked, the humble Gandalf, more than any, saw the strength in what others ignored. He found Bilbo a hobbit of no renown and sent him to face a dragon. He trusted Frodo, a bearer of no crown, to carry the One Ring to Mordor. He chose Sam, a gardener, to guard the ring-bearer's heart. The Istari teach us that the smallest hands bear the greatest burdens, for they carry them with no thought of glory. Gandalf's faith in hobbits was no accident. In the Shire he saw a resilience that kings lacked, a quiet courage rooted in love for home and hearth. He sent Bilbo to Erebor, where the One Ring was found, not by chance but by a deeper design. He urged Frodo to take the ring, knowing its weight would break him, yet trusting he would endure. He sent Sam to watch over Frodo, knowing that love, not strength, would carry them to Mount Doom. Gandalf's wisdom was to see the small as great, to trust the humble over the proud. Saruman scorned the small. He sought the ring for himself, believing only he could wield its power. He mocked Gandalf's love for hobbits, calling them halflings and pipeweed. Yet it was a hobbit, Frodo, who bore the ring he coveted, and another, Sam, who ensured its destruction. Saruman's pride blinded him to the strength of the small, and in the Shire he fell to the very people he despised. Radagast cherished the small in his own way. His love was for the sparrows, the foxes, the trees, creatures ignored by the great. His care for them was a silent rebellion against Sauron's dominion, a preservation of life's quiet beauty. The blue wizards too may have worked among the small men of the East, tribes forgotten by the West. If they stirred rebellion, as Tolkien later wrote, it was through the humble, not the mighty, that they weakened Sauron's armies. The smallest hands bear the greatest burdens because they do not seek them. They carry what is given, not what is desired. The Istari teach us to look to the overlooked, to trust the humble, to see strength in what seems weak. In our lives we know this truth. The quiet acts of kindness, the unseen sacrifices, the small choices that change the world. The Istari remind us that greatness is not in power, but in the courage to carry what is heavy, even with trembling hands. The Istari were bound to mortal forms, subject to death as men are. Yet their spirits were Maya, eternal, and their deaths were not endings but passages. Gandalf's fall in Moria was a door, not a closure. Saruman's end in the Shire was a judgment, not a cessation. Radagast and the blue wizards faded, but their spirits lingered, their fates unwritten. The Istari teach us that death is not the end, but a door, a passage to judgment, transformation, or mystery. Gandalf's death was a sacrifice. In Moria he faced the Balrog, a Maya, like himself, and fell into darkness. For 10 days he battled on the peaks until both were broken. His body died, but his spirit was sent beyond the world, to Iluvatar's presence. He returned as Gandalf the White, not by his own will, but by the One's. His death was a refining fire, burning away the gray to reveal the white. He came back to finish his task, to lead the free peoples to victory, to stand at the Black Gate as Frodo climbed Mount Doom. His death was a door to greater purpose. Saruman's death was a reckoning. In the Shire, betrayed by Wormtongue, he fell, and his spirit rose as a gray mist seeking the west. But a wind from Valinor scattered it, denying him return. Saruman's death was not redemption, but judgment, a reflection of the choices he made. He sought power, betrayed his mission, and in death he was left to wander a shadow, without home. Yet even in his end there is a question: could he have turned back, as he once considered atop Orthanc? Radagast's death is unseen. He faded from the tales dwelling in Rhosgobel until the Third Age ended. Did he return to Valinor as Gandalf did, or did he linger, a spirit bound to the wilds he loved? His death, if it came, was a quiet door opening to a fate as gentle as his life. The blue wizards' deaths are unknown. Did they perish in the east as Tolkien once feared, ensnared by Sauron? Or did they live on, as he later wrote, shaping the East's rebellion? Their deaths, if they died, are doors to mystery, inviting us to wonder. Death is not the end, but a door. It is the moment we pass from sight, but not from meaning. The Istari teach us that what we do before the door shapes what lies beyond. In our lives, we know this truth. The fear of endings, the hope of continuation, the choices that define our passage. The Istari remind us to live so that our door opens to light, not shadow. The blue wizards Alatar and Palando are the shadow of the Istari's tale. They went into the east, where the stars are strange and the tales are silent. They were chosen by Orome the Hunter, who rode through Middle-earth's wilds, hunting Melkor's beasts. Their names in Middle-earth, as Tolkien later wrote, were Morinatar, Darkness Slayer, and Romastamo, East Helper, but what they did none can say with certainty. The East holds secrets the West cannot know, and the blue wizards are its keepers. In Tolkien's early writings he feared they failed. Like Saruman, they may have been ensnared by Sauron, founding secret cults that outlasted his fall. The East was Sauron's stronghold, where men worshipped him as a god. To go there was to walk into shadow with no aid from the West. If they fell, their tragedy is a mirror to Saruman's, a warning that even the wise can falter when isolated, when temptation whispers of power. Yet in his final years, Tolkien gave them hope. He wrote that Morinatar and Romastamo succeeded, stirring rebellion among the East's tribes, weakening Sauron's armies. They arrived in the Second Age long before the other Istari, perhaps with Glorfindel the elf, who returned with Maya-like power. They sowed dissent, kindled resistance, ensured that the East did not overwhelm the West. If this is true, their deeds were as great as Gandalf's, though unsung. They worked in shadow, trusting their light would endure, even if no one knew their names. The East is a metaphor for the unknown, the places we cannot see, the struggles we cannot share. The blue wizards teach us that not all heroism is sung, not all victories are seen. Their secrets are a reminder that our own lives hold hidden battles unseen, sacrifices, quiet triumphs that no one will record. To go into the East is to trust that our work matters even when the West forgets our name. The Istari were sent to Middle-earth not to win, but to hope. Their mission was a song begun in the music of the Ainur, continued in the Third Age and carried into the silence beyond. Their faith was not in victory, but in the will of Iluvatar, who shaped all things. They sang of this faith in their deeds, their silences, their sacrifices, and their failures, and in their song we hear the echo of our own. Gandalf's faith was his strength. He trusted in hobbits in Aragorn, in the small and the great. He believed that Iluvatar's will worked through the choices of the free peoples, even when all seemed lost at the Black Gate as he marched with the host of the West. He knew Frodo's fate hung by a thread, yet he marched singing a song of defiance, of hope that the ring would fall, and it did not by his hand but by the choices he set in motion. Saruman's faith was in himself. He trusted his wisdom, his cunning, his ability to rival Sauron. His song was one of pride, and it ended in discord, a broken melody scattered by the wind. Yet even in his fall there is a note of pity, a reminder that faith misplaced can be redeemed, if only he had chosen. Radagast's faith was in the earth. He sang to the birds, the trees, the wild things, trusting that their beauty was worth preserving. His song was soft, but it lingered, a quiet harmony in a world of war. The blue wizard's faith is a question. Did they sing of rebellion as Tolkien hoped, or of power as he feared? Their song is distant, but it echoes still in the East, where secrets lie. Faith is the song that endures. It is the melody we sing when the world is dark, when the outcome is uncertain, when the shadow seems too great. The Istari teach us that faith is not in ourselves, but in something greater, in the light that burns beyond our sight, in the will that shapes all endings. In our lives we know this song, the moments we choose to hope, to act, to love, despite the silence that follows. And so the tale of the Istari fades not into resolution, but into memory. Their lights flicker still in Gandalf's laughter, Saruman's warning, Radagast's birds, the blue wizard's secrets. They were not saviors but guides, not conquerors but pilgrims. Their truths are ours, the light we carry, the shadow we face, the wisdom we bear, the temptations we resist, the sacrifices we make, the silences we speak, the burdens we entrust, the deaths we pass through, the secrets we keep, the faith we sing. What does it mean to carry a light that is not your own? It is to walk as the Istari walked, to bear the weight of hope, to sing a song that no shadow can silence. And as their tale fades like a song into the stars, we are left with the question, what light will you carry, and how will you sing?